here's what we're talking about today. Lawmakers have started to see the unredacted Epstein files. Things are coming out. There's men whose names are starting to be redacted. We're going to talk about that, what happens next. Then Ghislaine Maxwell had the audacity to come on this internet, or I guess Congress, and ask Trump for clemency. And then we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, some of the deeply racist aftertakes. And then speaking of racist aftertakes, we're going to be speaking with New York Times writer and TikTok creator, the brilliant Jamel Bowie, who recently wrote about Trump and some of his racist truth socials that we're not even going to name here quite yet. So we have a packed show today.
Let's get into
topics.
Let's get into it. Yeah, welcome to the meeting.
Because I actually, the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning was a video of Lauren Boebert talking about what she's now seen in the unredacted Epstein files. So I was like, this is,
interesting. I didn't see that. Do you want to tell me what that video is before I go?
Well, it just was basically like, hey, they're bad. And then they asked the specific follow-up questions of regarding Ghislaine Maxwell, do you think Maxwell should be out of prison? And she was like, after seeing these, absolutely not. She should be in a much worse prison. And so that was sort of the takeaway. And so, I mean, I do think, and I think I saw another senator is also having a very similar reaction that I hadn't seen before, and I need to check on that one. But I guess one of my questions when I heard that was I'm so glad Carrie's here, because it's when you hear this and you hear someone go, they should be in a worse prison, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, this is a really, it's interesting because ultimately my work and my beliefs are, toward a society where abolition is possible. I believe in, an institution that doesn't throw people behind bars just for, in any and every infraction. That being said, I'm very much an abolitionist. However, I do believe that there's a scale. I'm pragmatic about this, right? And for people who have this level of power, influence, corruption, I mean, I don't know that I would say that she deserves to be in a worse institution, because I know about the one that she's in, and it is horrible. They're all horrible, but sometimes horrible people deserve to, to be honest, it's very tricky. And especially within the community of advocates and abolitionists that I work with and that I'm friends with and whom I love, people are very split. And I understand, because it's the intricacies, the nuance, but we're kind of all on the same page across the board that,
when it comes to Ghislaine,
Ghislaine, when it comes to, that being said, I focus more on, the everyday average citizen who is being imprisoned.
Right.
And, these are not everyday regular people. And so the standards, I don't want to say that they're higher, but they're much different. And the scale, the ratio needs to follow suit, right?
And it's also I don't know, I feel especially in this type of situation is I feel a lot of what our prison culture is about punishment. You bad, you deserve to go away. But especially in this one, I just want to pull up so yesterday, just as a reminder, she testified in front of Congress, pleaded the fifth the whole time. There's a video out there, and she just pleads the fifth, will not answer questions. Then immediately after, her lawyer puts out this statement. I think we have a clip of it. Yeah, I think we have that. And in it, she basically says hey, Trump, if you give me clemency, I'll come out and clear your name and President Trump's name. She basically goes out in public to ask for a quid pro quo for both of them. Mind you, this woman has already been charged with perjury. She is an adjudicated liar. And so what I was going to say is, in this situation, not only is it about hey, you deserve punishment for the horrible things you did, it's you are still going to do more harm if you were let out of prison. You know what I mean? Like, and especially in the situation when there's this like ring of people who like clearly deserve to be in prison. Like, I feel like that's also a nuance in this case where it's like, you're still perpetrating harm. You're trying to perpetrate harm to the American people. It's not just about punishment, in my opinion, in this case.
Yeah, and I think about the harm also that's being perpetrated within the prison as far as just having her being there, because statistically, unfortunately, as we know, prisons are not designed for humans, but they're certainly not designed for women and femme presenting people. And unfortunately, just due to the rates of, sexual assault and things of that nature, a very high percentage of women who are imprisoned have experienced that. And then we're putting them in these fishbowls where the correction officers, typically are men, and they're being watched and surveilled constantly. And we wonder, why is this an unsafe environment? Why is this not rehabilitating? And so I think a lot about the other women who have to see her and have to be around her, and how, I know that, triggering is we throw that around a lot, but truly properly triggering to the other women who are there. I just can't.
Also, here's the thing. There are people who commit crimes, and when they are, released from prison, they are not going to reoffend. Ghislaine Maxwell is not that type of person. She isn't the person who, got caught selling drugs or what, things happen. Like, people commit crimes, they serve time, they get out, they build totally different lives, right? Like, and we can also get into the implications of race and bond and all these kind of things that go into that. But Ghislaine Maxwell would get out, in my opinion, is she'd find a new way to keep doing what she did before, just in a different way. She's not a safe person. So my question is, do you think that she perpetrates these kind of things in prison as well that she did in the real world?
I'm sure that, and I'm trying to think of how to say that, transferable skills, right?
Right.
It may, and that can be used, and I'm not saying for her, but in general, that can be used very positively, right?
Totally.
After I got out of jail, I went on to become a digital marketing director. And, I make the joke all the time that was just consensual manipulation, basically. But it's using some of the skills that I had that I was for negative.
Yes.
Not that advertising is the most moral, amazing thing. Obviously, we know it's not.
Right.
But it's, I'm sure that she's running some of these kind of, scams, and using, her stature and her notoriety to her benefit, for sure.
Let's talk about also, by the way, there's only one person in prison right now in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring. There's only one person, and Ghislaine Maxwell belongs in prison, but that one person is a woman. And now we know lawmakers have started to see these unredacted files. Just this morning, I logged on and I saw Howard Lutnick, who is in the Trump cabinet, testified in front of Congress, said he did indeed go to Jeffrey Epstein's island. He finally, after being I saw this man and I was immediately turned off, and finally he's coming forward. And so I want to talk a little bit about these redacted Epstein files, whether we think we'll actually ever see any accountability for anybody. There's so clearly these men that are involved, at least 6 of them. I think we have a clip of Thomas Massie talking about it, and then I want to talk on the other end.
Also clear, just sort of as a checking their homework, that they need to do a little more homework. There are 6 men. We went in there for 2 hours. There's millions of files, right? And in a couple of hours, we found 6 men whose names have been redacted, who are implicated in the way that the files are presented.
right? Like all these files that we saw that left a vacuum for conspiracy theories, they were like, we went in for 2 hours and they had to go into the DOJ office, sit at their computers and look through the files there. And they immediately saw at least 6 men who are implicated. And none of them have had any accountability. And then I want to
What do
throw
you
out,
think that means though? Like for our viewers, like when you hear him say there are 6 men that are implicated, what do you think that he is saying?
so like I'll give you an example because this is, like we do this early but this morning what I saw, because now they're allowed to speak on the floor of Congress, like there's all these rules about how they can speak about it.
Right.
And from my understanding, do you remember there was an email going around about a torture video? So this
No.
was something that was happening on social media. There's an email in the files where somebody emails Jeffrey Epstein and says, like, thank you for that torture video. I loved it. I'll be in China and then I'll be in the United States. It's a disgusting thing. There was all this speculation and there's all this speculation that it was Benjamin Netanyahu. It was not Benjamin Netanyahu. It was a sultan in the United Arab Emirates. It just came out.
Oh, okay.
And that name, the sender had been redacted. And so all these people are like, oh, thank you, Vienna. Man, Vienna is the freaking...
Vienna is on it. She's on it.
Vienna is the GOAT. But yeah, this is the email. This was going around the internet. And because it had been redacted, there's all of this room for conspiracies. And again, like, I have no love lost for Netanyahu, but like, this wasn't Netanyahu. Right? This was a sultan. And like, why did the DOJ redact his name? He's not a survivor. He's clearly a perpetrator. And so we're only now just starting to get who those twos are. And I also want to play. Oh, go ahead, Carrie. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a question because I'm not familiar with all of the legalities around redaction. But is it I'm sure there's criteria and things, but is it also that they get to sort of pick and choose?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
That's basically what they're saying, is that the DOJ just sort of like arbitrarily, they didn't redact certain names of survivors, identifiable information, but they did redact this sultan's name in the files. And so I think there's 2 questions here. One, how do we hold accountable the people and by hold accountable, I mean, like, do the bare minimum investigation of these men? And 2, and they're talking to Pam Bondi on Wednesday about this, why is the DOJ obfuscating? What are they obfuscating? And I think that there's a case there too.
I mean, the one thing I'll say, like to Carrie's thing that she just said, and then even my previous question is like, you almost have to have taken like an advanced law class to figure out I'm not saying you've had to go to law school, but to figure out what's going on in the news right now, very basic, is so incredibly confusing. Like, why is this redacted? Why isn't that redacted? Like, what does that mean when they say they're implicated? I'm picturing Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey, like me in like 6th grade when I'd have to go to the library to work on a project. And
like literally, that's it. Yeah.
But to me, I think that one of the things that all of these people thought is like, we are so wealthy. We've made this so confusing that no matter whatever fucking happens, no one's going to take, the average American is never going to take the time to understand this, because at the same time, they're getting billed, $2,000 for a medical procedure that was $200 last year. So like that to me is part of it.
Period.
Well, and that's, with the carceral state in general, that's also, the judicial system overall, that's what they bank on, right? Is people's inability to understand. And that's, a lot of my work is sort of around what constitutes a scam, right? Because at this point, we call people grifters, scammers, if we disagree with them. But ultimately, for me, my definition is it's when an institution or a group of people, a person is taking advantage of someone force in a way that they have no control over, right? Like there's no world in which the average citizen will ever be able to have the education and knowledge of
time.
Right.
That's the other piece.
And it's so, I mean, I think that it's also how we consume the media. I don't have to wax poetic about that for very long. I'm sure everyone agrees, but it's like, I know a lot of people who are getting the bulk of their information from hot takes of hot takes. It's like people of hot takes of hot takes. And it's like, okay, that's how information is disseminated, sure. But also the trickle down effect and the chaos that comes from not looking at the source. But then again, when the source is so confusing, why would anyone go there?
Why would anyone? Yeah, like the amount of people that I saw, and again, this is not to say Israel has connections to the Epstein files. Like, this is not to say that it doesn't, but the amount of people that I saw that took this email with the redactions and made this, like, implanted the Israel-Palestine conflict onto it, when in fact it was about somebody in the United Arab Emirates, like, it leaves this vacuum for like going down the wrong rabbit holes. And then it takes away from like the actual accountability and the actual interweb of these complicated things. And I think it just leaves space for everybody to ignore the reality that there are like a bunch of survivors who got trafficked by the world's most powerful men who are still in power and have to like go through this day after day after day after day. Like, it's so sick. Should we talk about the Super Bowl before we talk about Jamel on a lighter note?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Super Bowl has been this really interesting thing that I just saw this video that my nemesis Bethany Frankel did that she then since deleted, and I am going to talk about it later today. But I think it's worth talking about for a second because basically her whole thing is like, I'm going to get canceled for this, but where's the line? Where's the line and what makes something political and why? And she's like, on Mark and Kelly, they can't talk about things like this. They can't talk about politics. And I'm like, okay, bitch, who's watching Mark and Kelly or Kelly and Mark?
Yeah,
like no one's fucking, no offense, Kelly Ripa, no one's watching that. Okay. So first of all, there's that. Second of all, the other thing that I
also before they do make it political that she's married to a Latino man, you know what I mean? Like,
well, they've gone along this long. I don't think it's happening. But here's my thing to Bethany Frankel. Bethany, I thought you were the fucking genius businesswoman. And last week on this show, we had Megan Gailey on, who has worked for the NFL and knows a lot about all of this. And she said to us, money. That is why the NFL had Bad Bunny. They know it is an investment. They know it will make them money. They know it will expand the league, blah, blah, blah. So I guess like my thought is like some of you are discounting how capitalistic the NFL is.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, sorry, Rebecca. I was just going to say that it was the most patriotic I have maybe ever felt watching the halftime show. That being said, though, I did, from the moment that it was announced, think about the metrics that the NFL was, everyone's applauding them. And honestly, yes, I'm so glad that they made the decision. Right. It wasn't just Bad Bunny, it was also Green Day, but they have the data, they have the metrics of their demographics, and they're realizing, oh, guess what? It's not just, it's not just white
people
English
in Puerto Rico,
who watch the Super Bowl. Like the amount of money that they're making off of, I guess let's just say marginalized communities, that's ultimately the reason that Bad Bunny was put in this platform. But again, I'm so glad that he was, and what an incredible show. But that's, to your point, Meredith, not to discount the real reason they're not doing it out of the kindness of their hearts.
Didn't that give you, like, that gave me real hope when because I watched, but I was like, oh, if the NFL sees Brandy Carlisle, a rainbow insignia on the field, Bad Bunny, Green Day, if they see all of these things as profitable, that means that like there is a mainstream American audience for that, which means that maybe we'll magically vote ourselves out of this